Today I want to talk to you about aging and anti-aging, but not in your typical wrinkles, face sagging way. I want to approach it with a very skeptical, critical, scientific lens and kind of introduce you to what the science actually says about anti-aging because I find that there's a huge disconnect between what we actually know about anti-aging and how we talk about it. My name is Pessa and I will be celebrating my 38th birthday this year, and I have been researching and talking about anti-aging for a while now, so I know that if I don't say this is all you people will want to talk about in the comments, so I might as well say it here. There's nothing wrong with aging. Facial aging is something that we all experience. It's one of the most ubiquitous human experiences out there. We all age, and just knowing about it, understanding it, is not the same as being pressured into performing anti-aging. I find that actually understanding what's happening to our face, why certain things are happening, can be very empowering in actually making the decisions, deciding, do I want to do anything about it? Do I just want to let it be? And I find that the knowledge is the key, but at the same time, a lot of people feel that if you talk about aging and anti-aging, it's like the same as pressuring people to perform anti-aging, and they kind of appoint themselves as gatekeepers of that information, and I'm not here for that. I just want to tell you how you can interpret and think about anti-aging and how you can understand the changes happening on your face, on everybody's face really. So let's get into it. And there's a lot of ways to talk and think about anti-aging, but I think the best way to approach the subject is to ask, how does facial aging look like? And I know you all are going to be like, wrinkles, because we have been conditioned for years and years of marketing from companies that, try to sell us anti-wrinkle treatments, gadgets, cosmetics. We are kind of conditioned to think about aging purely from the lens of wrinkles. So I say aging, you say wrinkles. But in fact, when you really think about it, I think we all have some doubts about it, equating aging to wrinkles. For me, one of the signs of it is the fact that whenever I bring up the topic of aging, there will always be someone who's like, well, my 70-year-old aunt, mom, friend has no wrinkles, so checkmate, aging. But saying that someone doesn't have wrinkles is not the same as to say that they look way younger than their actual age. And please look at the screen. I'm saying this because I know a lot of people just listen to the videos in the background, but please look at the screen and check out those two photos that I prepared. Both of the faces have the same skin texture, so wrinkles have been removed, and yet you can clearly tell that one of the faces is much younger while the other is mature, even when no wrinkles are present. And that is because our perception of aging doesn't come from counting someone's wrinkles. It comes from perceiving the overall shape of the face, the proportion, how shadows and lights form on the face, and that's how we assess another person's age. And what is worth kind of aligning here is that recognizing a person's age is actually a learned skill. Some of us are very good at it because we are very sensitive to the signs of aging, and some people are just not very good at it. People like portrait artists tend to be excellent at recognizing signs of aging because they know where to look for them, while people who have no interest in the subject might be pretty like oblivious to it and have problems estimating another person's age. But as I presented before, there are definitely certain characteristics that make the face look older. So, what do we make of it? I think that there are about 22 signs of aging that can be recognized on most faces, And you can clearly see those signs of aging appear in composite photos. Composite photos, for those who don't know, are photos where you take lots of photos, usually 10 to 20 photos of different people, and sort of create an averaged photo. And I found composite photos representing people from different age groups and different ethnicities. Throw it out on the screen here along with the source. And you can clearly tell that across all ethnicities, people do experience facial aging. There are signs of aging that are pretty common, and we learn to perceive them, we learn to observe them, and that's how we recognize another person's age. As you can tell in those composite photos, wrinkles are not a thing. Wrinkles have been averaged out and therefore do not feature, and yet we can clearly tell that signs of aging are present. Okay, so now we have established what is aging as something to perceive. Now the question is, why do those changes appear on the face? What is causing them? Well, this is where things get a little interesting. I think that we've been trying to answer this question for a very long time. In the 80s, a lot of the scientific papers focused just on the skin, the idea that it's something's happening to the skin and the skin just becomes loose and lax, and that's why signs of aging develop on the face. But around the 90s, 2000, the dominant theory of aging was the so-called gravitational theory of aging. So the idea that it's the gravity of the earth that pulls the face down, and therefore as we age, things just kind of sag and require to be lifted back up. And this idea is sort of the idea that props up the idea of facelifts, and it has been very popular for a very long time. And I think a lot of us ourselves kind of feel like it's the Earth's gravity that's pulling our face down, because if we lay down and look in the mirror, the face just looks so much younger. So it's easy to kind of go into the conclusion that, well, it must be the gravity. But the science of it doesn't really add up. Because when scientists took photos of people from their younger days and their older days and compared one to one, they noticed very quickly that things like pigmentation, moles, stay roughly in the same place on the face. So if the face was actually sagging, if things were migrating and moving down, those characteristics on those little signs, those little spots on the face would move along, but they didn't. So does this mean that the gravitational theory of aging is false? Well, it's not really false so much as it's incomplete. Somewhere around the year 2000, there was more attention being paid to the underlying tissues of the face. So scientists started to look at other tissues like bone, muscle, and fat. One of the scientists who was looking at faces affected by partial paralysis, where half of the face would be paralyzed and the other still active, he noticed that as people age, when they are struck with that partial paralysis, they experience severe facial asymmetry. So where the muscles are paralyzed, the face looks very different to where the muscles are still active. And then he observed that for younger people, paralysis doesn't cause such severe asymmetry. And that's how he realized that as we age, in more mature faces, the muscles are actually perpetually more contracted. They are shortened, and when the face becomes paralyzed, the muscles elongate. But in youthful faces, muscles appear not to be contracted. They appear to lay flat and long. Therefore, they are more similar to muscles that are paralyzed in that sense, when at slack, when not being actively contracted. Another scientist kind of built up on it, and he actually ordered a series of MRI scans to be performed on people of various ages. And what he noticed in those MRI scans is that in faces of very young people, like 19-year-olds, the muscle of the face, the muscles of the face are very long and almost like arching forward, creating a beautiful foundation for the face and for the skin and other tissues to sort of lay on. But as soon as in early 20s, he noticed that the muscle becomes shortened, straighter, and kind of pushes on the fat compartments hidden deeper in the face. And as time goes on, the fat from below the muscle gets pushed through and sits atop of the muscle, so it gets displaced. And this is where the gravitational theory of aging kind of comes in, because it explains what happens after the fat has been sort of pushed into a new position. Once the fat has migrated from deeper layers of the face, from the deeper compartments of the face, it is more vulnerable to be displaced and pulled by gravity. And that's also explains why when we lay down, when we lay flat and take a photo, the face seems to be more youthful, because the positioning of the fat is more like before it was squeezed out of its original placement. So to really explain aging, why facial aging happens, the best explanation is that the muscles become shorter. As they become shorter and less relaxed and more perpetually contracted, they push on layers of fat hidden beneath them and displace them. As the muscles become shorter, they also decrease the surface over which the skin of the face can be stretched over. So you end up in a situation where it feels like you have too much skin, like the skin sagged and became stretched out, when in fact you yourself lost surface over which the skin can be stretched over. Funny enough, once the skin loses that sort of mechanical tension provided by the muscles, the underlying muscles, once the skin is kind of loose, it produces less collagen, kind of kickstarting this spiral effect where not only we feel like we have too much skin, but the skin kind of feels like it's very loose, it's very thin. It kind of explains why we feel as if the skin aging process is so uneven. Our skin all over the body seems to be far more resilient to the aging process, whereas the skin on the face feels very fragile and loses that elasticity very fast. And the thing is that facial muscles are actually far more susceptible to this shortening effect than the muscles of our body. It is confirmed by scientific research that as people age, their muscles, even at slack, become shortened. But it does appear that this process is far, far more pronounced on the face. And I would explain it in a way where, in our bodies, muscles are usually locked in antagonistic pairs. One muscle contracts, the other stretches, like the biceps, triceps duo. One stretches when the other contracts. But on the face, the muscles are independent of one another. In example, you have muscles that bring the brows together, but you do not have muscles to pull the brows apart. You rely on muscles' natural elasticity to sort of pull themselves back into the appropriate position. So you can clearly see how easy it is for facial muscles to become overcontracted and shortened, because if they already have a propensity to do that in the face where they have no natural counterparts to stretch them out, you can clearly see how this process can accelerate and happen very early on in life, and the consequences that we observe are what we define as signs of aging. Having said all that, I guess the next best question is, okay, this is what happens. What to do about it? What can you do about it? That is a question that is not easy to reply. The scientists that I mentioned who researched this subject, whose studies I use for the foundation of this video, they weren't really interested in developing techniques that anyone can use at home to have a perpetually youthful face. They were more interested in developing treatments for their patients to come into their offices and get something done. So they experimented with things like cutting the muscles, because once you untether the muscle and you disable it permanently, it's gonna lay flat, it's gonna be long, but it's also unusable. The same with Botox. You can get an injection that paralyzes the muscle, but then the muscle becomes, well, it's not doing what it's meant to do. So another thing that they tried is they tried to inject filler under the muscle to kind of arch it forward, but then you have the issue of the overfilled, overvoluminous face, which is sort of the bane of current aesthetic medicine. So no, those doctors didn't really come up with any solutions that I can recommend to you. But I think we all know that massaging the face, exercising the face, touching the face in a variety of ways can produce pretty decent results in terms of elongating the muscles and making it elastic, making the muscles elastic and recreating that feeling of having a strong foundation for the face, for the skin to be stretched over. There are a lot of options of facial massage out there. There are so many systems, and you can go to get your face massaged by someone else. You can have your face massage on your own. But I believe the key to successfully elongating the muscles is to be very, very precise. I don't think that you can get that precise elongating effect by just rolling your face with some jade roller or even, whatever. It's just not enough. I think we need to be very, very precise and very intentional with how we grab and pull and try to activate the muscle. A lot of, things that I promote is all about that. I have an ebook dedicated to how you can grab and pull and stretch out your muscles and make them long and elastic. You can also find some videos on this channel that sort of follow this principle of very precise muscle flexing and elongating. But aside from that, I do believe we can also support our anti-aging efforts with things like cosmetics that help the muscle to relax. There are two options here. You can use peptides that mimic Botox, so peptides that block the signal for the muscle to contract. I find that this can be very, very helpful to sort of just relearn how to have a relaxed face again. And there are also substances that you can find in cosmetics that actually help the muscles to naturally relax by wearing down the neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. That's also an option. So I'll list some of the ingredients here and maybe write a blog article with it, so you have a reference if you want to find out more in the future. So those are the two things that I think really, really help. Of course, you also have to manage the fact that the skin kind of loses the desire to produce collagen. I'll make a separate video about that issue because I think it's absolutely fascinating. And once you understand how this whole fibroblast to collagen thing works, it's so much easier to just manage your own skin. So yeah, those are my thoughts, more my discoveries on anti-aging. I hope this video is useful to you, and I'll try to elaborate on the subjects that I've only touched on more, either through more videos or through blog articles. Please ring the bell if you're interested in more content. I do not upload regularly, so ringing it just helps to not miss an upload. But it's been a joy to be able to share those ideas, because this is something that I think is, once you understand, once you see through what's really happening on your face, your whole approach to aging can change, and you become far more immune also to empty promises made by so many people in the anti-aging industry. So yeah, that's all I have to say for today. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.